independent charity that promotes Ukrainian culture and shapes the dialogue about Ukraine here in the UK. And I'm happy today to present to you event Defending the Human in the War Poetry, a conversation with the servicewoman and prize-winning poet Yaryna Chornohuz. This event is a part of the Being Human Festival, UK National Festival of the Humanities, run from School of Advanced Study, University of London, and funding from the Arts and Humanities Research Council and the British Academy. Yaryna Chornohuz visits founded from the Center of Public Understanding, Defense and Security at the University of Exeter. And I would love to introduce you, the moderator of today's conversation, a big friend of the UIL, Hugh Roberts. He is a professor of French Renaissance literature, languages, culture, visual studies at the University of Exeter. He runs the University of Exeter project to translate Ukrainian wartime poetry, working with translators, poets, and Jantar Publishing to bring out Arthur Drawn, We Were Here at Dasein by Yaryna Chornohuz. Hugh, please, the floor is yours.
Дуже дякую, Ольга. І добрий вечір. Це буде Україна. I'm missing my Ukrainian class through the Ukrainian Institute London this evening. Amelia Glaser is tussing at me as I confess that.
You have a good excuse.
So, as you can hear from my Ukrainian, I'm actually a professor of French. And it's been my great privilege since 2023 to help out with translating Ukrainian wartime poetry. And as part of that project based at the University of Exeter, we reached out to the extraordinary Yaryna Chornohuz. It's my great honour to introduce her to you this evening. It's also been my great privilege to get to know Yaryna over these past few days. We've met with ordinary people in Exeter, extraordinary people, very senior UK military. I have to be discreet about what that was, but that was amazing. And as Olga said, it's very hard to put into words who Yaryna is, so I will hand the mic to her, so to speak, very soon. But she's been defending Ukraine first from 2019 as a volunteer paramedic. Then she joined the Marines, 6 months, very intensive training, which, okay if I say what that training involved a little bit? The final bit of training was involved, in her case, crawling through the sand in the desert, where some people on high ground, in fact, commanding officers on high ground, wearing boxing gloves, got to fight off the people who were trying to get their beret, and the recruits were allowed to hit back, which sometimes led to problems later on in their careers. But of course, she's seen extremely active service, and naturally this event will touch on difficult and sensitive material, and I'm aware that what we'll be talking about affects many people in this room personally. So I'd just like to say that if you need a moment, if you just need to pop out, there's absolutely no judgment involved from us, of course, in that. We would understand. So since 2020, Yaryna Chornohuz has been a Marine, working as a combat medic, and most recently a drone operator. But I think it would be most helpful now if I actually hand over, so to speak, to Yaryna. But I'd like to start with a question, first of all, which is, it's very unusual to find a war poet who's also a woman who expresses that experience of a woman who's a full soldier, a full Marine, seeing the active service that you have. So I wanted to ask you, what is it that inspires you to write poetry, and how does your particular experience come through in that?
Thank you for your question, Hugh. But first of all, I want to thank you all for your presence here. I want to let you know this is for me a big honor to be in the UK, and a big honor to be translated to English. So first of all, before answering the question, I want to thank you, Hugh, and Jantar Publishing and the University of Exeter for supporting Ukraine, especially Ukrainian literature and combatant literature. This is very important, and I have a lot to my morale, to be here and to communicate with you and to participate in all of these events, as well as Ukrainian Institute. Thank you for your job here. Talking about poetry, well, first of all, I can say that I'm really glad that I am the one of those women in Ukrainian literature who create the tradition of female combatant literature. This is actually very important because, as far as I know, Europe doesn't have such tradition, or maybe there are such authors, but for now I don't know. And in Ukrainian literature, there are going to be Ukrainian female combatant literature, and I'm proud to be the part of it. Talking about creating poetry on the front line, for me it is a way to stay alive. As I said in the podcast for Daily Telegraph that we wrote today, poetry during the war is a thing which helps to preserve humanity in the circumstances where humanity actually is impossible for some reason. And this is also poetry collections are like monuments of memory. Because when I wrote this book, Dasein, Defense of Presence, this was during the first year of full-scale invasion. We had a lot of operations on the front line, lots of evacuation, lots of reconnaissance operations. We had also, our company had lots of losses, and so I put all poems together and offered them to Publishing House. My first motivation was to save memory of this past, because I know that there are a lot of soldiers in our military, and everyone has its experience. There are both men and women who I think suffered more of this war, who have even sharper experience on the front line than me. But this book is dedicated to 5 of my killed comrades, and I wanted to share this feeling of this reality, which is very different from reality in which all Europe live. And sometimes when I get some feedback from readers, I'm happy, I'm glad, maybe not happy, because this is the reality which no human should face with, that they say we can feel inside the soldier's body, and this is for me the best feedback of what I can get actually.
Thank you very much. You reminded me of a quotation from the great Ukrainian poet and soldier Maxim Krylov, who was killed in January 2024. He was asked, if anyone asks me what this war is about, I will reply without hesitation, names. And your collection starts with naming. Every individual life matters. You're going to share now one of the poems from Dasein. I should say that Dasein, Defense of Presence, was translated into English by Amelia Glaser, and the wonderful poet, unfortunately can't be with us today, Fiona Benson, and I spent many happy hours on Zoom over the summer puzzling over aspects of Dasein. And it's been fascinating talking to read about that. But I'll be quiet now, obviously, because I'd like to hear the poem.
So this poem I'm going to share with you as the first one. I read it yesterday for Royal Marines, actually, and this poem is a good answer on the question, how is it to be the only one female in a military company, or how does the female feels herself starting her passing on. So I'll read in Ukrainian and in English. Надто червона пляма, пітьма п'янка, і кожна з нас у пітьмі іде сама. Навіть якщо поруч нема де продихнути, одні плечі, одні тіла, кожна з нас у пітьмі іде сама. Поки кожна з нас не збагне, що опори шукати не було ніколи підстав. Всі плечі надто слабкі для серця, що б'ється в тобі, для голосу, що говорить в тобі про любов, яку вже забули шукати, для любові, яка стала знаком. Любов до свого і любов за своє. У неї не вірять, хоча на цьому світі вона схожа на сонце більше за будь-що. І світ говорить своїм чоловічим голосом: ти занадто червона пляма на надто сіро-білому полотні, що робить композицію неохайною, вимоченою так недоречно в червоне, коли усе навкруг хоче звичної чорноти. Долаючи гидку слабкість жіночого тіла, переступаючи через упалі дерева, замотавши шкіру в кордуру в кілька накатів, відчуваючи захист мовчазного заліза в руках, кожна з нас відчуває дві речі – пітьма, п'янка, і кожна з нас у пітьмі іде сама. Опори не треба, опора б'ється всередині і має голос. Всі плечі надто слабкі, щоб витримати одне серце. Сильні слова завжди занадто слабкі, сильне тіло смертне. Голос не гасне, якщо вміє бути. У кожній жінці живе солдатка, якій доведеться пройти пітьму наодинці. І вся поміч не потрібна, і всі плечі зайві, і все важке тільки двома руками. І всі кохання прожиті і полишені, і вся самота твоя, і вся ніч світу, як одне сонце одного життя. Дякую. A spot too red. Darkness, drunkenness, and we all walk alone in the dark. Though there is no room to breathe, just shoulders, bodies, we all walk alone in the dark, until we each realize there was never any point in looking for support. All shoulders are too weak to bear the heart that beats in you, the voice that speaks in you of a love we've already forgotten to seek. A love that became symbolic, a love for what's yours and love for something greater than you. They don't believe in love. Also, in this world, it's more like a sun than anything. And the world says with its male voice, you are a spot that's too red on a canvas that's too greyish-white, which makes the composition messy, so sloppily saturated in red, when everything around demands basic black. Overcoming the female body, its wild weakness, stepping across fallen trees, your skin wrapped in rolls of ballistic nylon, you sense the protection of the silent iron in your hands. We each sense two things: darkness, drunkenness. We each walk alone in the dark. You don't need a shoulder to lean on. Your support beats and speaks inside you. No one's shoulder are strong enough to hold up a heart. Strong words are always weak. Strong bodies are mortal. But a voice won't die if it knows how to be. There's a soldier girl in every room who must pass alone through the dark. And she doesn't need help, and she doesn't need shoulder. And all the weight is for her hands alone. And all loves are lived and left, and all solitude is yours. And all the night of the world is one sun for one life. Thank you.
One of the senior UK military individual, obviously inappropriate to name them, they immediately registered that poem, and they wanted to share with their people that they lead the solitude felt in war and how that's expressed through poetry, and how poetry can be important in processing war somehow. But I'd like to ask you, Yaryna, what you consider the role of poetry and art in wartime?
First of all, as I said, the role of poetry on bar is a preserving of memory, of vivid memory for very liminal experience, and for those who passed away, of course, in battles. It is important, I think, to understand that wars are different, and the war we face in Ukraine is more like war for Russians. This is their war. For us, it's more like defense. So we are in defense. I can say that Ukrainians is a nation which doesn't like wars, doesn't like all of that stuff. It is kind of violence no from us wanted. As I said, preserving memory and to save a kind of a language, because a defense creates very special type of language of this liminal experience, where all words started being very heavy. What I mean, I'm used to say during my presentations in Ukraine, for example, that war and experience of soldier turns words in poetry to the very beginning, to the very primordial times, to very primitive senses. As some philosophers of existentialism used to say that poetry is a forgotten language of first people that makes it very beautiful. On war, you feel it very sharply. This first ages, for this first experience of human. You start sensing lots of things differently, like death, like love. Like I have a poem in this book about all feel old age quite differently when we are soldiers. Like there is an idea in this poem, for example, that modern world idealizes, make ideal from usage, while when you're a soldier in this kind of defense war against 6 times bigger enemy, and you saw lots of people who died in a very young age, giving their life for the country. Old age is becoming a dream for you, actually. So war and defense switch places and switch meanings and switch senses. That may be important thinking about poetry on war to shock these senses.
Thank you very much. It was fascinating because you began by talking about how the primary function of poetry is to remember, but then when you talk about old age, it's also looking into the future with some degree of hope. I wonder if you might like to share that poem, Old Age, now. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I'll share it. Old age. It's just natural. Time mixes with the sense of your bar dead, and halfway across the desert you are married. Your feet are too heavy and small, your memories like the dune, where they slowly spell out your last will and testament. The afterlife is too much like a full stop. The same full stop where they say an ancient deity could hide an entire civilization with its earth, sky, and air. Here, people, soldiers, lose their lives in an instant. They fall from trees like the leaves of one more autumn. In the fall, some leaves don't turn yellow, but red. War's absence breeds romantic notions of dying young. In battle, war's presence makes us think it's not so bad to live to old age after all. We are unlikely to see old age, though in war, even children grow old. Instead of old age, we have the afterlife, and we have a rule in the afterlife. Size the day, you might not see in other months. How stubbornly this epoch has rejected old age, how the war has made some of us yearn for old age, for greeting death like a childhood friend in a house untouched by shelling. Still, every autumn there are leaves that have to fall, so grass can grow and the foot can step on the grass. Freedom, you are beautiful despite it all.
Thank you. Just listening to that poem, it occurred to me there's a connection there with the first poet we translated in our series with Jantar Publishing, his first poem has the refrain, soldier. It's based on a Ukrainian proverb, rain falls, children grow, but he changes it in that poem to soldiers fall, children grow. When you talked about the leaves falling, to allow for another spring. Yaryna, your collection also deals with the idea of things that are left under occupation. You've talked also about the liminal experience of war. I was wondering if you'd like to talk about those poems and maybe share one or two of them with us. It's a series of 3.
Yeah, of course. I'd like maybe to add also about my book that it preserves some important spaces which I passed through as a soldier, where we had combats or where we just lived with our company. Also I'm used to saying that I remember a lot of occupied territories actually. For some people, occupied territories on Ukrainian map is just a map, so it's just some, sort of abstraction. But for us, for militaries, especially who had service in the armed forces of Ukraine before full-scale invasion, these territories is not just a map. It's a very, very concrete villages, very concrete rivers, very concrete woods, shores and people from whom, for example, in occupied region of Kherson, in occupied districts of Kherson region, like Skadovsk, where we had a home base. I remember the family from whom I bought milk when we had, trainings, and we lived there before our tours of duty to the front line. And these territories were occupied while we were on combats on another direction. And to live with a memory about these territories, about these really small villages, is something like it is with you forever. I'm used to saying that we treat them, militaries who saw it as people, as comrades, the same, these all territories. And that's why it is so important, in my view, to return them, because there are other people and they want to live in a free world, in a democracy. So I'll read for you the cycle of poems, which is called Left in Occupation. Before I read, I'd like to add also so that for militaries it is very useful to lose things, to lose stuff in war. Like, for example, in the first months of full-scale invasion, I lost all my stuff. Like, I had a big backpack with lots with things, books, my notebook, my, of course, some other of military clothes, some of civilian clothes, and it was just, burned in a vehicle that was spotted by Russian artillery. Some of them, some of our stuff, we should just, throw it away because, and believed it's only those that we had on us. So, and we spoke today with Hugh about translation, and he told me that he hesitated how to translate "залишене в окупації" as lost in occupation or left in occupation. So we had this discussion about what does it mean lost and left. When you lose thing, you actually don't know where is it. You just go and it just was lost somewhere. But the thing about occupation, that you know the exact place where your thing is, where your stuff is, but you cannot have it anymore. Yes, and it is left.
Залишене в окупації. Хворе світло небесних стріл крізь ще не знесені шибки чужого дому сушать моє лице, сушать пам'ять дрібні хвилі сіверського дону над нашим дубовим лісом, який залишився в окупації. Там залишилося усе, що судилось, короткі миті спокою, ніби найточніше провіщення війни. Я втратила сіверський донець, рубіновий дім понад ним разом із тобою. Кажуть, загиблих оплакують після закінчення війни, але наша війна закінчиться з життям нас усіх. Тому день на те, щоб згадати загиблих, день наступний – у бій. День третій – той, що скоріш за все не настане. Перемога – слово, до якого тягнешся ніби до річки, яка зникає в пустелі. О Господи, які ж ми скалічені в цій пустелі. Наша пустеля вічна. Боже, дай сили далі втрачати тих, кого любиш. Боже, дай сили відпустити кохання. Залиш сили тільки на залізо, кулі, бинти та ще тяжку ношу, яку треба винести з поля бою. Боже, дай сили на місці ворога нашого вічного бачити саму порожнечу. Амінь. Залишені в окупації. 3. Залишені в окупації речі, загублені на війні речі, мають властивість повертатися. Їх повертає любов, викуповуючи останніми там, де виробництво вже припинилося. Тому безглуздо сумувати за дорогими речима, лишеними в окупації. Але що робити з дотиками загиблих на твоєму тілі? Як жити з привітаннями та звертаннями до тебе полеглих і залишених на полі бою, що бачили заплющені очі залишених у бою на окупованих землях? Доба відповідей на складні запитання скінчилася разом з війною, залишивши безсмертя запитанням, на які наймудріший, на які найсміливіший не наважиться дати відповідь. Хто зведе над останніми поглядами в небо кургани? Війна дарує безкоштовно дорогооплачувану і довго оплакану істину. Тіла ні за що не відпускають тіла. Живі помирають разом із мертвими. Полеглі в бою довго не помирають. До зими 22-го ми не знали, що таке орел вийняв карі очі. На чужому полі біле тіло вовки з'їли, така його доля. До кінця лютого, що триватиме цілі роки, ми визнаємо, що бачать очі залишених на полі бою. До кінця лютого, що триватиме цілі роки, ми так і не дізнаємося точної відповіді, як жити з дотиками загиблих на твоєму тілі. Дякую. Celestial left under occupation. 1. Celestial arrows with their sickly light through the still unbroken windows of a stranger's house dry my face, dry my memory of ripples on the Siversky Donets over the Oakhuz. Left under occupation, left with all that was foretold. Those brief moments of peace, the most accurate portents of war. I lost the river, Siversky Donets, and the ruby red house above it, along with you. They say you mourn your dead when the war ends, but this war will end with all our deaths. So a day to mourn the dead, the next into battle, the third day will probably never come. Перемога, victory, the word you long for like a river that disappears in a desert. O Lord, how broken we are in this desert, our endless wilderness. God, give us the strength to keep losing the ones you love. God, give us the strength to let love go. Leave us just enough strength for our iron bullets, bandages, and the heavy burden we'll carry from the battlefield. Oh God, give us the strength to see instead of our eternal enemy, nothingness. Left under occupation 3. Left under occupation, things lost in war have a habit of returning. Love spends its last penny to redeem them, even where production lines have ground to a halt. So there's no point crying over those cherished things left under occupation. But what do you do with the touches of the dead on your body? How do you live when they call to you, talk to you, the dead, and those left for dead on the battlefield? What did they see? The closed eyes of the ones left behind, fighting in occupied lands. The age of answers to convoluted questions ended when the war began, leaving immortality a question. Even the wisest, even the bravest won't dare answer. Who will raise burial mounds over last glimpses at the sky? War gives, free of charge, the dearly bought and long-mourned truth. Bodies won't let bodies go for any price. The living die with the dead. Those who fall fighting take a long time to die. Until winter of 22, we didn't understand the lines, Shevchenko lines. Eagles pecked out his hazel eyes in a foreign field. His white body was devoured by wolves, and thus his fate was sealed. Until the end of this February, what will last for years, we will bear witness to what they see. Those eyes left on the battlefield. Until the end of this February that will last for years, we won't learn the exact answer to how you're supposed to live with the touches of the dead on your body. Заправні станції. Інтелектуалам відомо, що коли настає війна і окупація, першими зі списку об'єктів цивілізації грабують маркети на заправних станціях. Тож, коли я проминаю траси цієї країни у чорноті виднокола і місяця, то обов'язково спиняюся на заправці і вдягаю речі того, кого вже немає. Червона футболка, чорний реглан з аквамариновим літаком, в якому він був, коли відпочивав з чергування, довга ЗСУшна термуха з протертими дірками на правому рукаві, підписаний мішок від зеленої фліски із позивним. Ці речі самотні навіть коли на тобі. Вони щоразу закінчуються на твоєму тілі, наче гаряча вода в немісткому бойлері. Щомісяця на заправці я починаю жити трохи більше, ніж зазвичай, разом із тим, кого вже немає. Ніби ти маленьке прозоре вкраплення в недосконалому вірші. Небуття кидається простору солодко, немов би цукерка. Є одяг, який боїшся загубити більше, ніж своє життя. Зелене світло по всій Україні, на чорноротих дорогах втрачається тіло, ніби асиметрія у заправлених койках армійських учебок. Інтелектуали знають, з-поміж іншого у цій країні працює також бюро із відпускання втрачених людей і речей. Я люблю заправні станції України за свободу. В кінці кожного місяця на старій заправці без маркета я помираю разом із тим, кого вже нема. Це абсолютно дозволено. Ваше право на це невибірково захищає закон разом із ворогом. Дякую. Gas stations. Intellectuals know when war comes an occupation, the first thing to get looted in our civilization is the mini-mart at the gas station. When I travel this country's road in the dark between horizon and moon, I'm sure to stop at a gas station, dressed in the clothes of the one I have lost. His red t-shirt and black hoodie with an aquamarine airplane he wore off-duty, long frayed thermal, holes at the right elbow, green fleece bag inscribed with his call sign. These clothes are lonely even on me, but after a while, like pressure building in a tiny boiler, I am compelled to put them on again. On my monthly trip to the gas station, I begin to live a little more than usual, along with the one I've lost. As though you were a little fleck of prose in an imperfect poem, non-being tosses itself sweetly into the expanse like a piece of candy. There are clothes you're more afraid to lose than your life. Green lights across all Ukraine, and the body is tucked out of sight, down black-mouthed roads, like the asymmetrical corners of sheds in army barracks. Intellectuals know this too, among other things. In this country, there's a bureau of letting go of lost people and property. I love Ukraine's gas stations for their freedom. At the end of each month at this old gas station with no mini-mart, I die along with the one I've lost. This is absolutely permitted. It's your inalienable right, enforced by law and by the enemy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yaryna. And I should have said before, thank you for entrusting your poetry to us, to Amelia Glaser, Fiona Benson and me. It's hard to express, but this is such extraordinary and important work, and it's so intensely personal as well. That act of trust from you we take that responsibility very seriously, and we're very grateful to you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your discussions. It's very. I was very curious to hear discussions about translations, so we can talk about it.
Yeah, yes, we can. And as I mentioned, we did have a lot of fun on Zoom, many hours, because Amelia is based at the University of California, San Diego. So we had the time difference to negotiate, and differences, of course, two people divided by the same language, as Churchill said. We had that to cope with. With this poem we just heard, Gas Stations, we went with the American. I don't really remember the discussion. I think it's because we thought it sounded better. It was that simple. Maybe you've heard when Yaryna has been reading the English that we had a strong preference for keeping things concrete and simple as much as possible, as that's very much the sort of school of poetry that Fiona Benson, who is an extraordinarily distinguished poet, a fellow of the Royal Society of Literature, Ford Prize-winning poet. It's hard to argue with her when she's making points. I try to avoid it. And she's done wonderful work editing the translations that we've done. So that was part of it, but it's also where in very detailed, intense research and literary criticism, which is where I come from. Obviously, that's in my case it's in French studies, but now I'm starting to learn a little Ukrainian and learning about Ukrainian culture. We heard in the poem from Left Under Occupation 3, Yaryna quoted a couplet from Taras Shevchenko, the Ukrainian national poet. I know most people in the room don't need me to say that, but it's true. Yaryna was talking about it earlier today, that Ukraine is in many ways an idea of Taras Shevchenko. He invented Ukraine as an idea based on freedom from the Russian Empire that actually enslaved him and imprisoned him and so forth. So when it seemed to me that when Yaryna quotes those lines, and in the poem, you do not say that they come from Shevchenko. You said it when you read it out. In our translation, we added a short gloss. That's where I come in as a kind of as a scholar who's used to producing critical editions. Obviously, you don't want to overwhelm things with glosses, but in that case, it was crucial for the English-speaking reader to know where those lines came from. and how Yaryna is clearly positioning herself in a canon of Ukrainian literature. And when you also, we may talk about this a little bit, you also mention, indeed, quote French poetry, so also within European and world literature, the canon, so to speak. And in fact, this whole there is an agenda there, which is that Russia's genocidal war and repeated genocidal action against Ukraine over actually centuries that Yaryna talks about, the very act of translating Ukrainian wartime poetry is in itself a small but not insignificant act of resistance and a move to fight against that brutal colonialism. When it comes to gas stations in particular, the poem presented a number of things that we talked about a great deal. One of them, and I'm rather sorry to talk about this because it's so personal to you, I know, Yaryna, but you talk about the clothes of the one you lost. And I remember that the line of the next stanza, "These clothes are lonely even on me," in the original Ukrainian, you actually shift perspective there, I believe, and you say, "These clothes are lonely even on you." I believe that's right. And
that's because like to be in Ukrainian language can be like, I don't know how to, you're gonna to help me, general, you know, when you say on one, yeah, that's right, on one.
We made the decision, of course, to translate it, "These clothes are lonely even on me," to make it very clear about who was wearing these clothes and what it meant. But thank you for the Ukrainian lesson, Yaryna and Alessia. You see, I am getting it after all. I'll tell my teacher. I actually discovered on the taxi ride here what the pressure building in a tidy boiler was all about, because that caused absolute havoc for us. But Yaryna was sharing that, and it's actually part of the reality that we don't know of what it is to be on the front line, where you need to be, if you want to take a warm shower, you need a boiler from somewhere, right? So
yeah, that's right. That's a thing of I don't know, military soldier routine. When you are, we are usually based in very old, very huts or abandoned houses where usually there are no water or there is no hot water, or it's like destroyed, and you are lucky when you have a man in your platoon who can do things. For example, to install boiler, and you can have hot water when you are back from field. So yes, that's why it is mentioned there.
And I'm really it's been such an honour to spend this time with Yaryna, and so the lines which I always loved but never understood, as though you were a little fleck of prose in an imperfect poem. Non-being tosses itself sweetly into the expanse like a piece of candy. And Yaryna, you were saying today that that's inspired somewhat by Sylvia Plath, who you've actually translated into Ukrainian, is that right?
Well, it's not really inspired by her, but when you said that you didn't quite understand what I meant, yeah, I actually try to explain this in the way that I have a similar feeling of the world as Sylvia Plath, whom I actually love very much. Honored to be the translator of her first poetry book, Ariel, to Ukrainian, which is going to appear in Old Lion Publishing House in Ukraine. So yes, I've just referred to her poem Birthday Present, where you have this, nothingness and this, state of non-being because of suffering as a presence, something sweet, something nice. So I thought that we have probably similar meanings, though she wasn't in the military, of course.
Yes, thank you. And some of you may know that briefly Sylvia Plath lived just up the road from Exeter, where the elm tree still is. But maybe we should come back to the gas stations, and it became one of the things that I think actually translates very well here, and it's nothing that we did, was that you convey in this poem that the importance of the gas stations and what they mean for military. It didn't need the poem itself did the work. We didn't need to do anything. But there was a detail here that, again, I've learned what it actually meant today. Green lights across all Ukraine. We talked about that a lot. Does that mean the all clear? Does that mean traffic lights? In fact, it's a kind of like an advertising slogan from gas stations that support the military.
Vog и Oko. All Ukrainians know what I mean. Yeah, there are two gas stations. Oko and Vog, they are of green color. They have this slogan, green lights, through Ukraine, and they play a very special role in the routine of Ukrainian militaries as they work very close to the front line. For example, the one which is in Kherson works in very kill zone, like, I don't know, 8 kilometers from across the river from Russians, and they used to be attacked by Russian drones, like, very often, but they still work. They still, sell coffee to militaries. They have discounts, like big discounts for petrol, gas for militaries, and these gas stations are places of comfort because we as military appreciate very much actually people, civilians who live there with us. Actually, that they would better evacuate themselves and their families, but still there are people who choose to be there and to fight for Ukraine on their level. And so gas station is a source of inspiration for all militaries in frontline zones.
Thank you very much. So I hope that gave people some insight into the translation process, which is in itself a very intense, as I say, very intense research and sort of deep literary criticism and a lot of puzzling over what things mean. And of course, I should also say that Yaryna was very generous with her time with answering Amelia Glaser's queries about such things. So we were able to. So thank you for that. I think we will sort of move on to like the final 3 poems. I think we're going to share.
I've made a lot of changes, but ті, що мають загинути в бою. Ті, що мають загинути у бою, мають занадто ясні очі. На війні ніхто ніколи не вирішує загинути у бою. Це нікчемна книжна романтика. Але якщо говорити про таких, то я ж занадто добре відчуваю їх. Їхня поява в твоєму житті схожа на осяяння, така ніби «Ага, ось і ти». Щойно вони по твоєму погляду бачать, що ти знаєш, хто вони і як підуть вони. Починають з тобою розмову на рівні серця. А розмови на рівні серця, вони завжди ні про що. І часто промовляються як мовчання. Ви подаєте знаки, обертаючись, ідучи за спиною один в одного, щоб ворог не почув. Розмови мовою серця схожі на дубове листя. Важко знайти щось тривкіше і вічніше, аніж воно, аніж його мовчазна присутність. Серед літа, що так само піде в землю аж до наступного небуття. Так мовчать з тобою розмовляючи, ті, що вирішили загинути у бою. Ти оприявнюєшся їм як істина. Вони оприявлюються як істина тобі. І в бажанні сказати, що нема на цілій землі нічого важливішого, ніж він, ти не маєш влади зупинити хоча б на мить час. Ти безсила. Ти не можеш нічого дати йому, крім мотузки від свого серця. Все одно вони відчувають твоє знаття, хто вони краще, ніж власне тіло. І в несвідомому бажанні загинути першими вони проявляють свій єдиний страх. Краще осліпнути, краще не бути, краще будь-що, тільки б не пережити смерть того, чиє серце тримає їх за світ, ніби невидима срібна шпилька. Тільки би бути першими. І на конвеєрі смерті, в який загрузила нас уже мертва Росія, ми не відпускаємо один одного навіть у небутті. І хай небуття не розлучить вас. Так, кожен раз ти хочеш помолитися у ясноті цих очей. Очі тих, що вирішили одного дня загинути у бою, завжди ясніші, ніж в інших. Дякую. So, this poem will be read by Hugh.
The ones who will die fighting. The ones who will die fighting are too clear-eyed. In war, no one ever resolves to die fighting. That's just a silly literary notion. Still, since we're talking about them, I know them all too well. The way they show up in your life, like an epiphany, like, aha, there you are. As soon as they see in your eyes that you know just who they are and how they'll go, they start speaking with you in the language of the heart. And words from the heart are always about nothing, and often spoken in silence. You signal to each other and, turning away, walk single file so the enemy can't hear. These conversations in the language of the heart are like oak canopy, hardly anything more enduring and internal than this, than his silent presence, in the middle of a summer that will likewise go into the ground until the next forgetting. They're silent like this when they speak with you, the ones who've resolved to die fighting. They speak with you like this, so silently, the ones who've resolved to die fighting. You appear before them like the truth. They appear before you like the truth. You want to say there's nothing in the whole world more important than him. You're too weak to stop time even for a second. You're powerless, can give him nothing but the chord from your heart. All the same, they sense your awareness of who they are better than their own body. And in their unconscious desire to die first, they expose their only fear. Better to be blind, better to be nothing, better to be anything, than to survive the death of the one whose heart holds them to the world as if it were an invisible silver pin, if only to go first. Even on this conveyor belt of death, where a long-dead Russia has loaded us, we won't let go of one another, even in nothingness, till nothingness do you part. So, every time you hope you're wrong about those clear eyes, the eyes of the ones who resolved one day to die fighting, are always clearer than the rest.
Thank you. Земля Афродіти. Головне не забути, що це вона перемогла у битві. Навіть зараз, у ніч героїки та романтики, Головне не забути, що врешті-решт у самому кінці обирають її. Я бачила її біля моря. Море мало власну назву, хоча воно скрізь одне й те саме, як і пристрасть. Я бачила, як вона щоразу змиває болото з одягу в піні морській, як одягає шкуру з собачої шерсті і закопує в землю свій єдиний дар – кістку померлого, який називають любов, і розфарбовують у червоне те, що первісно було вкрите чорним. Афродіта пересадила своє серце в банку і носить її в підсумку біля грудей. Перехожі в її серце через скло дивляться, ніби в очі. Думають, що воно схоже на кизилове варення від жінки, якої торік не стало. На банку видихають повітря, банку протирають, аби серце билось прозоро. Очі хочуть зустрічатися з іншими очима, але приходить Афродіта боліт і змушує очі зустрічатися з серцем. Серце, що б'ється під склом, єдина червона пляма на її собачому камуфляжі. Кизилове серце об стінки банки б'ється, вузькі скляні ребра не пропускають подих, Афродіта дихає через землю і видихає туманом, з якого не всі повертаються. Цариця моря і повіт. І здається, що єдиний їхній талант цих людей біля моря і степу – кохати, втрачаючи подих від викопування кісток померлих. Афродітине кизилове серце у банці таке моторошне і зрозуміле. Головне не забути, що це вона перемогла у битві, що наприкінці завжди обирають її. Головне не забути, що вона збирається знову вигравати війну. Дякую. Land of Aphrodite. Aphrodite. The main thing is, we mustn't forget, it was she who triumphed on the battlefield. Even now, in this night of heroism and romance, the main thing is, we mustn't forget that when it's all over, at the very end, they still choose her. I saw her by the sea. The sea had its own name, though it's the same sea everywhere, like passion. I have watched as every time she rinses the mud from her clothes in the sea foam, puts on her dog skin and buries her only gift in the ground, a bone from the one she lost. They call him love and paint red what once was shrouded in black. Aphrodite transplants her heart into a jar and carries it, strung at her chest. Passerby gaze into her heart through the glass, as though into her eyes. It reminds them of the hawthorn berry jam from the woman who died last year. They steam up the jar with their breath, wipe it clean so you can see the heartbeat. Eyes would rather meet other eyes, but Aphrodite of the swamps comes along and forces eyes to meet a heart. The heart beating under glass is the only red spot on her dark disguise. The hawthorn heart beats at the walls of the jar. The narrow jar prison keeps the breath from entering. Aphrodite breathes in through the earth and breathes out a fog from which not everyone returns. Queen of the sea and swamps. And it seems their only talent, these people of the shore and steppe, is to love, out of breath from digging up the bones of the dead. Aphrodite's hawthorn heart in a jar is so eerie and clear. The main thing, we mustn't forget it was she who triumphed on the battlefield, that they still choose her in the end. The main thing is, we mustn't forget that, once again, she is preparing to win a war. Монолог. Я би хотіла писати вірші, де в кожному рядку було б заховано щонайменше сонце, море і пустелю, а потім світанок серед морозного степу, спеку на морі, прибережні сутінки в літі, вечір у дубовому лісі, пелену ночі в степу. Я би хотіла писати вірші, де кожне слово було б загадкою і було б дзеркалом, в якому кожен, хто читає, бачив би сотні своїх відображень. Я би хотіла писати так, аби вічність писала зі мною свої складні та впізнавані фрактали Всесвіту та людини. Я би хотіла перегукуватися у написаному з Овідієм і Борхесом. Я би хотіла у них говорити про речі із Гайдегером та ходити по тонкій мотузці із Ніцше. Я би хотіла так. Але я народилася серед народу, який сотні років веде оборону від ушестеро більшого ворога за свою велику країну. А ворог хоче будь-якою ціною нас знищити і вже зробив нам щонайменше 3 геноциди. Насправді, їх більше. А тому я у своїх віршах плачу на могилах своїх посестер і побратимів. Я плачу на руїнах наших зруйнованих росіянами міст, за пабами, де пила я з моїми загиблими та ще живими пиво та вино. Я плачу за зруйнованими містами та за окупованим берегом моря. Плачу у віршах у той невеликий відрізок часу, поки не воюю, поки не стою в обороні. Плачу навіть тоді, коли вже не можу заплакати, коли чергове понівечене тіло більше не рухає в тобі нічого. Мій народ плаче на могилах століттями, і я плачу. Єдине, що можу діяти, крім плачу, взяти в руки автомат. Я вже давно це зробила, бо поети у цій країні чують війни першими і кожного разу їх мають за божевільних. Але часу усі випивають разом, хтось наполовину, хтось до самого дня. Іноді мені здається, що я навчилася віршами вбивати, кидаючи воги з підвісу дрона, але навряд з них хоч колись зникне плач за загиблими. Це і є бути поетом в Україні, вічно плакати у віршах на ще зовсім свіжих могилах, і ще на тих, яким сотні літ. Не весело трохи, так, і не оптимістично, зате чесно. Навіть коли забуваємо наше справжнє ім'я та мову, ми ніколи не втрачаємо віру в нашу красу та силу, у волю. А тому, навіть лишившись лиш під покровом попелу, не здаємось. Схоже, це і є дар мого народу. Monologue. I'd like to write poems where every line would hide at the very least sun, sea, and desert, and then down on the first covered step, scorching heat on the sea, summer twilight at the coast, evening in an oak wood, the while of night on the steppe. I'd like to write poems where every word would be a riddle and a mirror, where every reader would see hundreds of their own reflections. I'd like to write so. Eternity might compose along with me in the complicated yet familiar fractals of the universe and the human. I'd like to be in a dialogue with Ovid and Borges. I'd like to talk things over with them and with Heidegger, and to walk a tightrope with Nietzsche. I'd like that. But I was born to a people who have for centuries held the line for our great country against an enemy 6 times our size. An enemy that will stop at nothing to destroy us, that has already committed 3 genocides. In fact, more. And so, in my poems, I cry over the graves of my sisters and brother in arms. I cry over cities in ruin, Russia ruined. Cry behind the pubs where I drank beer and wine with my dad and those who still live. I cry for the ruined cities, for the occupied shores. I cry in poems in that little slice of time when I'm not fighting, when I'm not holding the line. I'm still crying even when I can't cry anymore, when yet another maimed body leaves me cold. My nation has wept over graves for centuries, and I cry. All I can do besides crying is get my hands on an automatic. I did that a while ago, because in this country, poets are the first to sense war, and every time people say they must be mad. But everyone drinks from the same cup, some halfway, others to the dregs. Sometimes I think I've learned to kill with poems, like launching vogue grenades from a drone mount, but I doubt any of them will stop us weeping for our dead. This is what is to be a Ukrainian poet, to eternally weep elegies over freshly dug graves and also over ancient ones. A bit of a downer, right? Not so optimistic, but at least it's honest. Even once we've forgotten our real name and language, we'll never, ever, ever lose hope in our beauty and strength, in freedom. And so, even left under a blanket of ash, we won't give up. This, it seems, is my people's gift.
Thank you so much, Yaryna. Before I forget, you may have noticed that there were feedback sheets on your seats as you came in. Be tremendously grateful if you could take a moment to fill those in and hand them to me or Olga, who's wearing her helpful human badge as a wonderfully helpful human. It's extraordinarily helpful to us to show the importance of these events, how they've affected people. I can tell from my privileged positions sitting at the front here how much this poetry touches people. It'd be especially interesting to hear from people who maybe didn't know much about Ukraine or Ukrainian wartime poetry before coming into this room. It'd be fascinating to hear how it may have changed your mind or shifted your attitude in whatever way that may be. So thank you very much in advance for doing that. It's much appreciated. But I think now we maybe have 10-15 minutes for questions. So having bigged Olga up as a helpful human, maybe if you wouldn't mind if I pass the mic to you. Are there any questions or comments from the room? Yeah, right at the back.
Yeah, I'll stand there then.
Thank you so much for this. Thank you for the conversation. Having seen you on YouTube in a few videos, it is just amazing for me to just hear you speak in person. And as a working translator, I really enjoyed the parts of the discussion that were about the translation of the poems. So, as a translator yourself, I'm wondering, from English, I'm wondering if you've read Ukrainian poetry in translation, like classic Ukrainian poetry in translation, and how you find the translations, but also how it affects you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. It's fine. Actually, we were also discussing this moment with Hugh, and I shared the idea that actually translation helps me very much to read my poems, especially when it's language with which I'm familiar with, because as you see, my poems quite hard sometimes, and especially when the book was just published in Ukraine, it was a big challenge for me to read these poems, because they triggered me, and I actually asked presenters in Ukraine not to read a lot of poems, but just having discussion about them. And when I'm reading them in English, it is easier for me. I can see them from the side, that language, English language, and this book translated to French as well, and French language, they took this very concentrative pain, which I feel in Ukrainian language of this poem, and that I can see them from a side. So it's very valuable for me to read my poems in other languages, like in English, which is maybe the only foreign language in which I can speak quite fluently.
In one of the poems you read, I think it was the third one about the things left behind, you mentioned the notion of an ongoing long February, which is like a recurring element in Ukrainian wartime literature. And at the same time, your experience of war predates 2022. So I was thinking if you could say how it changed for you since 2022, especially how was it before when there were even fewer people listening?
Oh, thank you so much for this question. Actually, I answered on this same question for a long time for UK Marines, yesterday, the day before yesterday. And this is actually the reason why I joined military, because there was actually a war also before full-scale invasion, before the February 2022. There was a war, but the trench war, another type of war, which from 2014 up to 2022, in which Ukrainian soldiers lost their lives on the same line, in trenches, from Russian snipers, from grenade launchers, from mortars, and around six men on a month. And the world was silent about it, like it was trench war in oblivion. World thought we have peace. Actually, we didn't have peace in this time. And when I was in paramilitary battalion, Hospitaliere, I joined it right after getting my master's degree in literature in Kyiv-Mohyla Academy. And I saw the situation. I saw that there is a front line, quite active in some sports, like that there were very active sports with everyday shellings and shootings. And that I had my first experience of evacuation, severely wounded man in his chest from Russian sniper. He luckily survived. But this, Mykola, my partner, who was also killed in 2020, was also a soldier in this war in oblivion. And that was one of the reasons why I joined Marine Corps in 2020, because it was like my protest against this oblivion. And that was another war. There were no drones, for example. This is main difference between it. And not only this, of course, trench war and maneuvering war are totally different. Like the one maneuvering war in 2014, and it started again maneuvering in 2022 when we all wondered how Russia, because we were preparing, like my company, we were already on the front line during 8 months before full-scale invasion, so I met already full-scale invasion on the front line, and we were preparing because our commanding told us, Zaluzhny, who is the commander-in-chief, he made preparations before full-scale invasion, and we all knew that something is going to happen as militaries. And we all wonder how is that going to happen, and then we saw these long columns of vehicles, which very long, 30, 50, we had a situation when we had observing post on a very high spot, and there were like my comrades, and I was on observing post down, this is Donetsk region, for now it's occupied territories, Volnovakha region. And I remember on the radio station he counted vehicle and he says, I count 40. Is there any sense to count more? You know, like we had 4 times smaller forces, and for us that was a big achievement, you know, to defend a village which was attacked for 5 days. We had lots of losses, but we, like 5 days, and then we had to retreat to another village, to another, like, and until we get some help from other people and brigades. Yeah. So that's kind of war, maneuvering war. It is not only about 2022. Even now, in this same moment, we have the same type of war on Pokrovsk direction. For now, I am in Kherson, have served there. It's also dangerous place, but for now it's less dangerous as Pokrovsk direction, because there is no Dnipro river who would defend villages, cities, like, you know, geographically, and they just move forward and move every day because Russians, they don't, well, they are treated like meat, you know, they don't spare people at all. They are like, yeah. So one more difference between those two wars is that we have drones and we don't have actually front line, we have kill zone. Like front line is a kill zone, and kill zone can be 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers, depends from drones. Whereas before 2022, it was just stable lines, and like kilometer, it was a big distance for militaries. For infantrymen, kilometer is a big distance. For now, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers is a very front line because of drones.
I want to add to what he said. How did it change for you personally? Особисто, як вам змінилась війна з 22-го року порівняно з 14-м? Як вам, як людині?
Okay, in English, I think. Yeah, it's fine. So the question was how the war changed for me personally. Well, I can say, like, I'm professional military. For me, it's routine. You know, my brain has blocked lots of painful stuff for myself. Already blocked lots of memories about losses, and I have this thing which in Ukrainian we said відкладені почуття. So like the feelings that you put away for better times. Like when I'm feeling actually nothing. There are triggers when I feel everything very deeply, but I'm just used to do my job. Actually, I was platoon combat medic, so I had lots of like physical job within reconnaissance operation, ongoing on foot with the guys evacuating bodies, evacuating wounded guys, and or just making reconnaissance. That was a job. For now, I'm working with a bomber, and I feel much more relaxed actually because I'm in a position, but more brain job, because it's technology, and you should know lots of technology to enable a drone bomber to fly. So this is like that. We are just used to the thing. We can be killed, or we can be wounded, or it can happen something. But we have to do this job. And I remember we have kind of a negative motivation that I know exactly what will happen if I won't do my job. Like our battalion will lack people, and Russians will storm more our land, and they will occupy more cities, and they will torture people as they used to do. So this is my motivation why I should, to be ready to do everything what is possible.
Thank you both for your work, and obviously thank you for your service. I have a very short question. Do your brothers and sisters in arms have input ever in what you write, and how do they react to the things that you write? I can imagine that they often survive on humour, so maybe hearing things that are very painful and stuff might be quite... I'd be interested to hear what their reaction is. Thank you.
Actually, my company is consisted of very different men, not all of them, you know, like poetry, of course. And so I'm not the one who comes and say, oh, sit, I'll read you something. I'm not doing that. There are guys who, like comrades, who are interested in poetry or just want to have my book as a memory, so they buy it and they just sign, like. A main sergeant of a company who passed away in Kherson region last year. I remember he bought a book in 2023 and said, you should write a very long text about him, about everything you thought of me. So, as a sign for me, so I did a very long text, remembering the operations. There's some very funny stuff about him, of course, and yes. And now I'm communicating with his widow, actually, who who in very bad condition, and. Her mother has cancer, for example, and I'm trying to support her. Yeah. So what I mean is, it's really differently. Like I still didn't give my book to my company commander, and I heard from guys that he's offended, he's resented. So maybe I should do that. Yeah. But you see, my poetry is very like open, straight, and it's men usually love some jokes. And maybe I'll read some jokes in prose, but later.
Thank you for your service, and дякую за вашу щирість. I'm studying now on the Ukrainian literature course, and last week we had a lecture from Sergei Zhadan, one of the most famous Ukrainian writers. And we asked him who he reads now, who he thinks one of the best writers or poets now in Ukraine. And without hesitation, the first name he said, it was your name.
Oh, he's a lovely man.
Yeah, he said that he follows what you write, and now I want to ask you the same question. Who inspires you? Whom you read? You don't necessarily have to say that it's Sergei Zhadan.
Well, actually, we have with him this kind of a literature match. So because he, of course, I'm reading him, and I love very much his poem "Жінка з чорним, як земля волоссям." I can, hear this poem. It is a poem which is a song actually by a very famous Ukrainian band, Мертвий півень. I can listen 100 times, and this song is inspired one my poem, by the way, which will be later. But you can say that. I didn't say that to him, of course, but yeah. You see, from Ukrainian writers, I'm inspired really much by, for example, Katerina Kalitko. I love her poems very much, but we are quite differently. She is a master of the word, And from Ukrainian literature, I named to few lots of names. For example, Mykola Khviliovy, Pluzhnik. I have a favorite as a philologist. It's a difficult question for me because I have lots of poets who inspired me. Almost in every decade, I have both Ukrainian poet and foreign poet who inspired me. Like, for example, among Ukrainian poets of 60s, this is Mykola Holodny. Then it's Vasyl Gerasimyuk later in 1980s. lots of artists and among foreign artists. So we talked a lot again with Hugh about French poets, whom I love very much, like Apollinaire, Paul Éluard, like Blaise Cendrars. They were also wartime poets. Of course, from English poets, I love Wilfred Owen. I read him when I was in a high school, actually, and I still remember some of them. So Paul Celan, which is an author with whom I have dialogue in my third collection poetry. Lots of my actually poems are dialogues, or I can communicate about image with artists or about just a phrase. Yeah. So thank you for this question.
My question is very simple. It is like traveling in past. Everyone here know, I hope, know you grew up in amazing family. Around was poets, artists, and a lot of culture. So my question, little becoming, like sometimes we ask child, who loves more, mother or father? So who had greater influence on you, your father or your grandfather?
Oh, this is a very difficult question.
Actually, you mentioned something about humor, and we saw all positive. Thank you so much, and you believe in Victor. And I think it is from your grandfather.
And what if I'll tell you that known? I love my grandfather and my father, of course, but we are very different with them. Both with my granddad, with my dad, with my father, I'm thankful to them that they read me books when I was a child. Different books, their books, not their books. Lots. I was growing up surrounded by books, so that's thanks to them. So I can say that I'm probably a little bit influenced by national songs because my parents are musicians. They play bandura, national Ukrainian instrument. So I think my poetry is totally different from it, but I'm definitely in some way influenced by it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you actually for everything. It was so touching.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yaryna, and everybody for your questions. I won't take long. It's really just to say, as other people have said, thank you for your service. No one in this room, I think, needs me to say it, but I'll say it anyway. We're aware that, and I now know that very senior UK military are also well aware that you are holding the line for us. So thank you. And there's an opportunity to have Yaryna sign copies of her books just over here. It's our friends from London Review Bookshop who've been great supporters of Ukrainian wartime poetry published by Jantar Publishing. Mike Tate has been a huge supporter, so thank you, Mike. He's hiding at the back now. But please, thank you again. Please fill in feedback sheets and please support Ukrainian wartime poetry in the corner here. Дуже дякую, everybody. Thank you, Yaryna.